Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, in order to celebrate the release of their brand new album, I'm taking a re-dive into the back catalog of Men Without Hats, that great Canadian synth pop band fronted by Ivan Doroschuk. Now, I like to start these videos off by telling you how I got into the band, and that's basically because of KROQ radio station in Los Angeles. They were playing things like Living in China, Antarctica, I Got the Message, Safety Dance. That's how I got into them. This was right before they really took off with a video on MTV of Safety Dance. And I'm not acting cool like, oh, I liked them first. No, because I actually missed their first EP, which was called Folk of the 80s. And that, up to my knowledge, has never been released on CD. So we are going to start with the first album, and that is called Rhythm of Youth, and that came out in 1982, jam-packed, filled with bubbly, wonderful, melodic, hook-filled synth pop. And, you know, with Ivan's voice, very distinct voice, these songs were just filled with joy. I mean, the thing is lyrically, they didn't take themselves too seriously, but musically, you can tell that they crafted these songs so perfectly well. My favorite song off this album is I Got the Message. This is the expanded edition of the CD. You can see the tracks there. And there's so many great tracks on this. And of course, Safety Dance. There's a few versions of Safety Dance there. And of course, you know, that's the song that they're known for. You know, it's still featured in memes today. And thing is just like a lot of bands, it's not the best song on the album. They've got a lot of great stuff here. Definitely, if you love melodic, hook-filled synth pop, this is a great album. Came out in 1982. 1984, they came out with Folk of the 80s, Part 3. Now, of course, that's a reference to their first EP was called Folk of the 80s. Rhythm of Youth would be considered Folk of the 80s Part 2, I suppose, and then Part 3. Now, this was just as hook-filled, but it seemed more raw. It didn't seem as produced, as layered, as lush as Rhythm of Youth, but still filled with great songs. Where Do the Boys Go was a big hit there, but I'm a big fan of songs like Unsatisfaction and Messiahs Die Young. Just a great collection of songs, a great pop, hook-filled, like I said, not as lush as Rhythm of Youth, but still just as catchy and as wonderful. Now, it took another 3 years, and then they sort of changed course a little bit. They were still melodic, they were still synth pop, but Pop Goes the World was just a bigger production. In fact, the song On Tuesday features flute played by Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull, if you can believe that. But this has some great songs on it. Of course, Pop Goes the World, Moonbeam, and then there's a great song there towards the end, Intro and Walk on Water, which is one of my favorites. And this is, again, jam-packed full of great, bubbly pop songs. It's beefier, actually, than the previous albums. There's like more guitar, bigger, bolder production, I guess you could say, but it's a great collection of songs. It showed them remaining true to their Men Without Hats sound, but going further, and it's really a great collection of pop songs. 2 years later, they put out the album The Adventures of Women and Men Without Hate in the 21st Century. This was a different album. I'm not going to say it's as good as the previous three, but it's really a sort of a change in direction. They were getting a tougher, rougher, maybe a little moodier. The songs were still catchy, but in a way it was maybe more of a thought-provoking album. Now, there are some fine songs on the album, of course. They actually do a cover version of ABBA's SOS on the album. And Hey Man's a great song. This is a really fine album, but it was just kind of I don't want to say a radical departure from the first three albums, because that came next. So The Adventures of Women and Men Without Hate in the 21st Century, still a great addition to your collection, but very different. So prepare yourself for that. But also prepare yourself for something completely, radically different when they returned with the album Sideways. I love this album because it's bold and it lacks synthesizers, if you can believe that. This is a guitar-fueled Britpop album from Canada. Seriously, you know, we were all listening to Oasis and Blur and stuff, and Men Without Hats were putting out an album that was filled with just guitar rockers, and it's really a fabulous record. Lots of great songs on here, including the title track. They even do a version of the Beatles' I Am the Walrus. Definitely a completely radical departure, but still a great record because it's all down to the songs. And of course, Ivan's voice, very distinctive. That's the thing about Men Without Hats. Great tunes, Ivan's voice, it all just makes for a great listen. So definitely check out Sideways from 1991. Now, the band split as far as I know after that. They did not resurface again for quite a while. But in the meantime, in 1997, Ivan put out an album called The Spell. Now, this came out, in the midst of house and techno and stuff. So there are some songs that are like that. There's actually songs here that are near ballads or soul jams. Really, really an interesting record. Of course, Ivan writes great songs, and it's Ivan on vocals, and you can't beat that. So The Spell by Ivan. This is Ivan from Men Without Hats, but he maintains his unique personality on this album. Came out in 1997. In 2003, out comes the album No Hats Beyond This Point. Now, from what I understand, or maybe I'm mixing this up, but this actually started as an Ivan solo record, and it just sort of morphed into a Men Without Hats. This is filled with some really, really fine music. But the only thing that holds me back from saying, wow, I love this record, is the fact that it sounds like what it is. It's all programmed on computers. It doesn't sound like there's any live playing, even live keyboard playing. It sounds like it's all programmed. I think The Residents suffered the same fate in like the 90s. And I think at some point Sparks even did that, where it was all programmed into the computer and there was really not a lot of live playing. But it does have some great songs. And in 2012, put out the incredible Love in the Age of War album. This was a return to the sound of Rhythm of Youth, folk of the 80s. This is such a great record, filled with great songs. There may be some things here that are programmed, but it sounds like a band again, and it's really an incredible collection of songs. I don't want to say, it's a return to form, because I accept every stage of a band's career, but if you are a fan of their early 80s things, this is an album to pick up. Really incredibly infectious, lots of great songs. Took them another 9 years, but they put together what I thought was going to be a 2 CD album, but instead they broke it up into 2 pieces. The first release was 2021, and it's called Men Without Hats Again, Part 1. And what this is, it's an EP filled with cover versions, but they're not covering these songs like they originally sounded. They're not doing All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople, David Bowie, in that style. They're doing it in the Men Without Hats style. They're doing Satellite of Love in the Men Without Hats style. It's really a great collection of songs. If you notice, track 5 down there is called No Friends of Mine, and that's their re-recording of Safety Dance, but it's done sort of more ballady, and it does get bombastic and big at points, but it's really a great overhaul of a great song to begin with. So definitely check out Men Without Hats Again, Part 1. And then finally, just released just days ago, or maybe a week, or maybe years ago, depending on when you watch this video, is Men Without Hats Again, Part 2. And this is brand new material from the band. And like Love in the Age of War, this is just revisiting that wonderful sound of the first 2 albums, but instead of just sort of staying there, it's very modern sounding, like Love in the Age of War. It just recalls those first 2 albums, but it also recalls little bits and pieces of other parts of their career. There's more guitar here. The return of Ivan's brother Colin Dorashuk has really helped beef up the sound and his guitar playing, and there's so much greatness to love about this album. I know that some people consider them a novelty band because of Safety Dance, but that was just one song, and sure, it did them well, and hopefully it's made them money over the years, but their entire catalog is really worth picking up if you love infectious, bubbly, thought-provoking synth pop by a great band. Now, you're in luck, though. All these albums that I talked about, you're going to hear little tiny snippets of 2 songs from every one of these albums. That's 20 songs. But more importantly, those 20 songs are packed into about 2.5 minutes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this little medley I put together by Men Without Hats, and I'll see you on the other side.
'Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine. Say, I got the message. We walked around in circles singing. Oh, I said we walk around. That's why I don't want to be a messiah. Messiahs die young. Everybody tell me, have you heard all those words? You were on a moonbeam. I said, amen. Quit knocking your children round.
Well, that's it. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope it inspired you to check out the band either again or for the first time. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.